There are 6 activities in the app: BinocuTap, BinocuMatch, BinocuDoku, BinocuPop, BinocuCode, and BinocuReading. And so each one of these activities can be customized to a variety of age levels. I've used it with a 3-year-old. I've used it with a 75-year-old. That happens to be the range of my patients' ages at this moment. Um, and I've been able to find ways to engage many, teenagers and adults, which I've also struggled to find those like home activities that might give them a sense that they're not playing a kid game or that they can sustain their attention with for long enough and those types of things. So it really has filled a little bit of a gap there for me as well. All right, so we're going to transition here to a different screen. Your practitioner dashboard um, looks like this when you go in. And we will first off just play the games. So I want to show you BinocuTap here. So a little set of instructions comes up each time you click on it. It's very simple, but let's see how it looks when we go in here to the settings. So for BinocuTap, which is the very first one that I designed, I can choose to have the training be 1 minute, 2 minute, or 3 minutes. I can choose the different shapes. I can choose to train the red eye, or which would be the eye under the green lens, which I don't have it set here right or left because I don't know necessarily how somebody's going to be using their glasses or what their setup might be. So I do have that instruction set down there that the red is seen by the green lens and the green is seen by the red lens. So there is a little bit of training associated with a patient using this. It's not just simple like sit down and do what the app tells you to do. I do really feel like we want to empower people to be engaged in creating their experience. So they want them to know how they're training themselves. And I think whether that's a parent or, I have a 6-year-old right now who's very able to manage, setting things up so it's only seen by her amblyoptic eye. And she sits and plays, 10, 15 minutes of games on this a night, and, she's doing great work. Um, so I'll show you the mixed version of this. This is one of the ones that has that option. We can have the targets moving or still, and we can change the speed of those targets. We can also change the size of those targets. And then there's also falling snow. So to make all of this make sense, I'm just going to play the game for you. All right. So this is the red and green mode. And so I set it on shape. So I have to just simply tap the shape as it's moving, right? I have to tap 3 times because I want to encourage fixation, stability, uh, and not just have them be able to be successful in randomly tapping all over the screen and, moving on to the next screen. So with this one, you were working with a child, you would try to have them identify the shape. So it's not just like a sit by themselves and do it, especially if you're working with a young child. The most therapeutic benefit is going to come when you collaborate with the therapist or a parent. Um, and it's designed to keep them in the activity until the activity is done. However, all of the activities have a way to get out of it before it's done if you need to, but you have to slide this little red thing all the way across the bottom of the screen in order to get out of it. And I also did that on purpose because some of the other games and things I've had, we can accidentally get out of it, and then, I've already played it almost to the end, and, then I accidentally get out and we don't know what the score is or anything like that. So I did make it that way. Um, so if I go here, I just want to show you the mixed setting, and then I'll show you the snow piece as well. I can change the size, and I can turn the snow on, and I can also have it be still. All right, so just so you see what that looks like. So here, because it's mixed, I've got it's alternating between like which eye is seeing the circle and which eye is seeing the shape on the inside. And it still does require 1 click, but it's not moving in that pursuit eye movement around the screen. Okay, and so this snow, if anybody has red-green glasses and they want to put them on as I'm demoing these things, it should work pretty nicely through the shared screen. I've worked with several patients through Zoom where I shared my screen and was able to give them access to my screen, and they were able to perform the games, and it was amazing. So that's another added benefit to how these things are designed. The snow over here can be controlled from this right-hand corner. I can change the transparency of the snow, and that snow is there to help break down suppression, create some stability in the peripheral vision. But you can change that transparency, and you can change how much of it is there and all of that. And that's there throughout all of the activities. Um, but you can also make it red only or green only, depending on what you want to do. Animals, I have Hebrew letters in here. I could really add anything if anybody had any ideas that they wanted me to put in there for symbols. All right, so let's get back to the home thing. So now I'll show you the BinocuMatch, which is actually, this was the second one that I made and really has become one of my favorites. Um, so it's a simple matching game. However, we can make it very difficult. So I'm going to show you easy just for the purposes of example here. So a standard grid is going to be one layer thick where there's a match for everything that you see. 3 layers deep has uh, 3 cards as if, they were stacked on top of each other. So it's a lot more involved. So if I make this letters, and I keep it at red and green, or I'll just make it red because I'm just going to do it here. I can turn the snow on, and then I'm going to leave the stability grid off for now and show you how we turn that on inside the activity. So the snow is still falling. I can turn the snow off over here, okay? Or I can turn the snow back on over here, and I can, again, change that transparency, and I can change that density, depending on how much feedback somebody needs, how much stimulation in the periphery somebody either wants or helps create that stability. The stability grid might not be as necessary if you're training in this MFBF type mode, but in the red-green mode, the stability grid definitely comes in handy, which is just a grid that you can change the thickness of that is seen by both eyes, just to help create that stability there. But if I show you here, I wanted to show you this 4x4 so that you realize, and you would have to train somebody into this, or at least let them know that this is what's going on. Or any, savvy kid could probably figure it out. But once there's an empty spot, you can move the other cards so that it reveals what's underneath. And that's important because come sometimes when the match isn't right there for you. And it is hiding under something else. So I just wanted to demonstrate that piece for you. Again, I'm not going to take my time to do that whole thing. You get the idea. So I can get out of it like that, but it will show on the data given to the practitioner that that activity was not completed, right? If you abort it midway with that slider on the bottom. So one of the reasons I really like the 10 by this activity is because if I put it at 10 by 10 and I make it 3 layers deep and I make it red and green and I start that, it's like this could take somebody a full half an hour to do, right? Which is it very much sustained attention. You could experience that fatigue. You could experience variability in the eye coordination, starting to get some feedback of what do my eyes feel like when they go ESO or EXO or I suppress, and then what do we need to do to bring that back? And can I complete this activity? I've also used this 10 by 10 just as like a saccadic grid, just like you would use a heart chart in the office. You could put flippers over it, that type of thing. So it's been helpful in that way when I know I need the cancellation to be perfect. Where in some of the printed materials, it's challenging to make that happen. And again, I can turn that grid off, but I don't know. I have not attempted to do this one without the grid, given that there's a reason I am a vision therapy doctor. And it has to do with my own visual vision therapy needs. All right. So that's BinocuMatch. And we'll go back out here and I'll show you BinocuDoku. So if you're familiar with the rules of Sudoku, so I have it here where you can play it with numbers, letters, or shapes. So I'll show the shapes in the 4x4. And again, we can have access to that falling snow on the side. But so what we need to do is we need to have all 4 shapes present in every line across, every line down, and in every box. So we have to select the spot, and then figure out which is the one that is missing in that spot. I find the shapes to be the most challenging for my brain just because I feel like we're used to letters and numbers and deciding that. Um, but um, so we go through this, and it tells me that I already used all those. So what's my option there? Perfect. And so it tells me it took me 43 seconds to do that. So that information is reported to the on the practitioner side that that patient took that long to do that. Um, you can do a traditional 9 by 9 with numbers. And again, you can make it trainable in the MFBF format. Um, And so this, depending on how long it takes somebody to do a Sudoku, this is definitely like appropriate for a teenager or an adult. Just go and do a couple Sudoku puzzles a day as your practice, which has worked out for a couple of the teenagers that I'm working with that I've had a hard time, motivating them to to really do any bit of their homework or their activities. Um, so it's been nice to have that. And honestly, the shapes in the 9 by 9, I have not tried. Um, but I think it's a very good exercise to go through if you can wrap your head around the strategy of doing something like that. Um, then I would imagine that could take 15 to 20 minutes to a half an hour to kind of go through that whole entire puzzle. Um, which I feel like those are always been the points that are challenging to find activities for is like the super young ones and then like the teenagers and adults who feel like this is all designed for babies. I'm going to skip to here to the BinocuPop. So the BinocuPop is the only one that requires the red lens to be on the right eye. This one, I have the 1 minute, 2 minute, 3 minute sessions again. And what you have to do is tell where the star is. Is the star coming closer or farther than the circle? Um, and when you get the answer correct, it gives you a little thumbs up. If you get the answer wrong, it gives you a little thumbs down, and that indicator moves around the screen to again stimulate some of that peripheral awareness. You can also add the snow here. This is not yet designed to push for a full range of binocular of convergence or divergence. It's more about just giving that sustained experience of can I make that decision of how my eyes are coordinated. And the feedback that I've gotten from it is people feel it, right? You can feel when I see the pop and when I don't see the pop. And so this is going through a little bit of like a small jump duction, but you're consistently having to adjust and change um, that coordination of the eyes and make that uh, decision. All right. Let's go to the BinocuReading. So BinocuReading is super exciting because this one is really customizable. Okay, so I have in here both on my library, the Dr. Lane's reading collection, and an add a story. So if I click on add a story here, I can cut and paste any text into this box over here, and it pops up so that I don't have prepared. I'm sorry for the cut and paste into there. But it pops up into here a full red-green exercise. So I'll go to the library to show you what it looks like. You do have to put in your title before it will save it. And then it saves it to your own library. And it's whether it's your patient that's doing it, it saves it to their own library. If you do it in the clinic, it saves it to your account as a practitioner library. It doesn't go live for everybody that's using the app. But there are things in here, these default stories, the directions, and the Jack and the Beanstalk that I put in as well as this reading collection. Everything that's in here in this reading collection has 5 comprehension questions after it that are then scored, and the person can get like a medal. I can't remember if I did one on this account. I haven't done any on this account. So it says all of these are new. These have not been read under this account. So if they have been read and they answered the questions, it would give you your score on the side of what answers, how many answers they got. So I have all the way up into adult levels on some of the adult ones. So familiar with my theme of things, sunshine, vitamin D, and the gut connection. So a little bit of learning for my adult patients that I'll put in there. And I will continue to add to that because I think it's exciting. But I'll show you how it looks when we get into here. So this is the Jack and the Beanstalk. So this is a preview of what the text would look like. And this I have set in the red-green mode. So every seventh word is black, and then it alternates between the red and the green. I can change the font size. Okay, I can change the spacing between the lines. Um, and I can change the spacing between the words. So this is something where, and I'll show you how you make that recommendation to a patient, but will have access to change these things if they wanted. But when you make a recommendation, it does pop on in these settings to be what you have recommended. Um, Other things that we can do is we can add an underline, okay, to the story. We can have it be a full line underline or a per word underline. I had somebody felt like it was easier for their eyes to keep them separated with a per line underline as opposed to just the full black line. So I made that there. And we can change the thickness of the line as well. So there you see I made it just a little bit thicker. There are advanced settings to this where we can set a pacing on. So I can push for reading speed. So if I have a moving underline, it's just a yellow underline that is moving along so that it encourages and gives some feedback on your pace. If I have the hide the past words, then it just pushes you on at whatever reading pace you put there. So depending on the patient, you can turn those on, you can turn those off. They can kind of challenge themselves to kind of figure out what words per minute they'd like to push themselves towards. And again, we have the snow options. And in the reading, we have the option to change the shape of the snow um, and the speed of the snow and all kinds of things. So once I hit start reading, it comes up for me here. Um, and I can turn the underline off live in this screen, and I can also change the snow live in this screen. And I can also change the settings over here. If I got in here and it wasn't working out, I needed to change something, then you have access to the settings over here and it automatically shifts it into the reading that you're doing. Um, so depending on how many words you cut and paste in here is going to tell you how long the exercise is for the patient, depending on their reading level and how fast they read. I've done this where I uploaded a list of sight words for a first grader who really wasn't fluent in reading yet, and we were just kind of working through looking at the words and seeing the letters and that type of thing. But it was really helpful to be able to customize that, and I just cut and pasted that into that first screen that I showed you, and we were able to work like that. Or I've put in like news articles for a patient to read, an older patient or an adult, that keeps them engaged as they're doing this. Um, in the reading collection, at the end of it, you do have to slide to finish, and then it would pop up those five comprehension questions. So it is up to the patient to choose which story they read, but again, they can see in there um, which stories they have read by this little icon that says new. If it says new, they haven't read it yet. And if it has a little score, and it'll give them the option to read it again if they want. But like I said, I plan to add some more things in there for us. Um, and the last one to show you is BinocuCode. So I do an activity in the office, I call it Heart Chart 100s, where um, we have a 100-letter chart. And across the top, we name them 1 through 10. And then the second line is 11 through 20, 21 through 30. So every number on the chart has a number distinction. And then we have to find the position, the 81st position, which is going to be an E. And I can type that letter in there. Okay. And number 80 is going to be V. Okay. I can either type it on my keyboard, or if I'm on an iPad, I can use this over here. So 46 is another E. I'm going to tap it over here. Okay. So I have to go back and forth. And again, we have access to the stability grid on this side. I just put those thick lines there, and I also have the ability to turn that snow on. I've used this exercise just again, like a heart chart, like not necessarily going with the code the full way. But it's been very helpful because it completely randomizes it every time it comes up. And all the codes that I have in there to solve are programmed to not use the same number or the same position more than once unless it's already been used every time that it shows up in the chart. So, and I have different levels. So again, if you complete this whole task, it's going to tell you the time that the patient took to do it and also how many misses they made. So you'll see if they just randomly were clicking or making the wrong decision about it. So there's difficulty levels. So if I put it on the easiest difficulty, then it's only going to have a couple words in there. Okay. And you see this at the top where it says misses. So if I click one, it records that I missed one, right? So I know how accurate they're being with their decisions based on how many misses they stack up as they're doing it. All right. So those are all the exercises. Show you what your practitioner dashboard has in it as well. So once you are approved as a practitioner, you will be granted a 10-day trial period of access. Once your 10-day period is up, then you would go in to manage your subscription and you would, it's going to pop up here for you to extend. Um, Buying of passcodes is where you would give access to your patients. So when you have a passcode, this is where the My In-Office session. So every activity that I just did is recorded here in the My In-Office sessions, but I can hide that. And then here under the practice management piece, this is what it looks like. Practice management section. So this practice management here is this is the passcode that has not been assigned to anybody. So it has a little assign button here. So I click that. All I have to put in is the patient's email. Okay. And then it kicks an email over to the patient with this passcode with directions on how to log in. And then they are linked to your account. Um, I have a passcode that I already assigned here, and that's where I can add in the recommendations. So you can choose any of the activities that are there, and I can choose, okay, so I want my person to do the BinocuReading. I want them to do the red-green mode, let's say like 32 font, word spacing, like wide, relaxed, use the underline. I can tell them even how thick or thin I want it. So again, when you put these in here, it's going to automatically have that be what settings are there for the patient when they click on it through that recommendation. So I can add that recommendation, and that patient's going to see that when they log in. I'm going to go over to my demo patient one so that you can see what that looks like there. And each one of these has a full setting screen here so you can choose each one of those settings so the patient sees what, or you can set how you want that to be done. And that shows up very prominently on the patient side for them to take your recommendations and do that. This is where the My Profile and directory, your directory listing lives. So if you needed to make any changes to what you had there, or you decided that you didn't, you have to opt in to being in the public facing directory. So you have to click that button. If you don't click that, then you won't be in the public facing directory. Um, and then just another little bit of information there on that end. Okay. So let's see, patient screen. So the patient again has the same home screen. So, or that has all of those basic things in it, but the dashboard that they have looks a little bit different. So it shows them how long they have access. Every passcode that is purchased by a practitioner is grants 12 months of access. Okay, so it shows them up here how many days they have left to do that, and it gives the option to extend that if they'd like. This is where those recommendations show up. So you can see it's very prominent here, even before they see anything else, right? It shows them what those recommendations are. And if I click on this, the Start the BinocuReading, it's going to automatically have those settings be what I set them at. And I did this not the right way. I didn't set it as I would for a patient. I just let it be what it was. Okay. So it automatically puts those in there. The practitioner account and this account are not linked. So it didn't show it exactly right in that sense, but it is working that way. So let's see if I go back out here to my dashboard. So the patient can either access all the activities over here on the left-hand side, or they can hit train, which brings them into this screen right here. All right. So again, the patient has full access to the Find a Provider directory as well. All right, so that's the app. All right. So this just gives you a little bit of, the difference between the patient features and the practitioner features. Patient has full access to all the activities and doctor prescribing, giving the recommendations, personal settings, those types of things. Patients do not have an option to do an auto renewal. So there's no hidden things where they're going to get a fee, at any specific time. A patient can choose on their own if they don't use the passcode given to them by a doctor, they can choose 6 months of access or 12 months of access. But again, it does not auto renew. They would have to go in and extend that on their own. And those practitioner features gives you the ability to buy those passcodes, either give them to your patients bundled with your therapy program, or a la carte charge your patients for those passcodes along with the red green glasses that they need to do that, the same way that you would for any access to any of the other computer programs that have been around for a long time. Let's see. So I have, because my brain is always thinking and have a hard time sitting on my ideas without trying to make things happen. I already have another activity in the works that I think you'll like too, but I'm not going to add it for a little bit. I will continue to add reading passages because I really enjoy curating them and added codes into the BinocuCode. And I also have plans to just, start producing a little bit more educational content based around how to use this and some of my other things. So BinocuFit is now, as some of you who know me know, I have not been super active on social media in the last several years, but BinocuFit kind of put me back in that position where I wanted to spread the word. So BinocuFit is available and findable on all of these. So I would encourage your support. Go ahead and like and follow and do whatever you need to do on those, and stay in touch.